Hello friends, welcome to EduTap once again. In this video, I am going to discuss about how to manage UPSC and RBI together in case you are preparing for both these exams. But before I jump on to how to manage them together, the question is why there is a need to manage them together. Because there are a lot of candidates who are still unaware about RBI or rather the high standards of RBI job. I'll first talk about that why RBI is a good backup option for UPSC aspirants. So a UPSC aspirant who aspires for a coveted job, no doubt it is one of the best job in our country, but the reality is it is one of the toughest also. God forbid, if you are not able to clear UPSC, even after 3 to 4 attempts, have you ever thought what you are going to do? What is your future? Have you ever thought about it? 99% of the candidates are not aware what they will do if they are not able to secure a seat in UPSC. And therefore, the logic of having a backup option comes. Now, RBI is a very good backup option for UPSC aspirants. And when I say that it's a good backup option, we mean it. It's not like any other backup option like SBI PO or SSC CGL. Rather, it is the one of the best backup options. Why? The CTC, that is your salary, is really good, 16 to 18 lakhs that you will be getting in hand. Postings would only be in the state capitals. There are no rural postings in RBI. There are no sales target or no public dealings that you might be required to do if you join as a probationary officer. And learning and growth opportunities in RBI are really good. If you join RBI at RBI grade B level, you can even reach up to the level of Deputy Governor at RBI. So that is the amount of learning and growth opportunities that you are going to get if you join RBI. So I hope you believe in the prospect of joining RBI as a good backup option if you are not able to clear UPSC exam. There might be many thoughts coming in your mind when I say that RBI is a good backup option. First of all, many of you UPSC aspirants might be thinking that backup option is for the losers and not for serious UPSC aspirants. To some extent that is right, maybe till the time you have given your first 3 attempts. But I think no wise man will keep all his eggs in one basket. Next thought that might be coming in your mind, single-minded preparation is the key to clearing UPSC Civil Services examination. No doubt about that. I would say if you are preparing for UPSC, just prepare for that, but only for limited attempts. If you are not able to clear in 2-3 attempts, right, then you need to start looking for the backup option. Will you be able to manage the preparation for both? The answer is yes. That is what I am going to discuss in this video with you guys. Now, RBI Grade B. Now, when we say that RBI Grade B is a good backup option, please do not take it for granted that this is something that can be cracked easily. RBI Grade B is a very competitive exam, but a serious UPSC aspirant, which I see there are a lot of serious UPSC aspirants, a lot of bright students who are not able to make it to UPSC. I think they are the ones who can give good competition all others who are vying for RBI Grade B. So what are the skills that are being tested in the RBI Grade B exam? They test you on your aptitude like in the CAT exam, quant and reasoning. They test you on your current affairs like UPSC does, though the orientation is a bit different. They test you on your descriptive English in terms of comprehension skills, summarization skills and your writing skills. Then they also test you on your knowledge in financial domain related to commerce and economics. So you can see that the skills that they are testing, right, are very wide, are very vast, and that's which makes this exam really interesting and competitive. So before I tell you how to manage both RBI and UPSC, right, or how you can manage, rather I would be talking about how it is easy to manage RBI along with your UPSC preparation, because there is a lot of overlap in the syllabus. So before I get into that, right, I would like to tell you in brief about the different phases that is the pattern of RBI Grade B examination, because once you understand the pattern, then you will be better able to acknowledge the fact that there is huge overlap of syllabus between RBI Grade B and UPSC. So RBI Grade B examination, for all those people who are new here, is conducted in 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3, which is interview. Phase 1 is a qualifying phase, right? So in this you need to qualify. These marks will not get added to produce the final merit list. In phase 1, basically the paper is completely of objective type. There are 4 sections: general awareness, reasoning, English language and quantitative aptitude. A combined of 200 questions is asked from all these sections, right? The breakup is GA 80 questions, reasoning 60 questions, English language 30 questions, quantitative aptitude 30 questions. And each question is of 1 mark. So GA contributes 80 marks, reasoning 60, and quant and English contribute 30 marks each. So overall you will get 200 questions, right, worth 200 marks, and the time that would be given to you is 120 minutes overall. Will there be any sectional timing? The answer is yes. There is a sectional timing for each of these sections: 25 minutes for GA, 45 minutes for reasoning, 25 minutes for English and 25 minutes for quant, right? So 200 questions worth 200 marks in 120 minutes with sectional timings and with 1/4 of the negative marking. What about the cutoffs? In phase 1, only a certain number of people are selected for phase 2. So say if there are 100 seats, maybe they will select around 1000 to 1500 students for phase 2, right? So the cutoff is decided based upon that. The top 1500 will make it to phase 2, and on that basis the cutoff will be decided. Is there any sectional cutoff? Yes, there is a sectional cutoff. So a sectional cutoff is defined for all these sections after the exam, and if you are able to clear the overall cutoff but you are not able to clear the sectional cutoff, then you do not clear phase, right? So that is about phase 1. Now the pattern for phase 2 examination, it consists of 3 papers, and that is what makes it really challenging. 3 papers are from diverse areas: economic and social issues, paper 1. Paper 2 is your English, which is checking your writing skills, and paper 3 is finance and management. Paper 1 and paper 3, that is economic and social issues and finance and management, are a mix of descriptive and objective paper. 50% of the paper is objective type and 50% of the paper is descriptive type. That is 50 marks out of 100 for paper 1 would be objective, and 50 marks out of 100 for paper 1 would be descriptive, and same holds for paper 3. I'll talk about paper 2 later. So when we say that 50% of the paper in paper 1 and paper 3 is objective, it means that 50 marks worth of paper is objective, and in that we have 30 questions, 30 minutes, and we have 30 questions. So in 30 minutes we have to do 30 questions worth 50 marks, which means there would be some questions out of these 30 questions which would be 1 mark and rest would be 2 marker. And rest 50% is descriptive, which means in 90 minutes you would have to attempt this paper of 50 marks. To attempt this paper of 15 marks, you would have to attempt 2 questions of 10 marks and 2 questions of 15 marks. So 15 into 2, 30, plus 10 into 2, 20, that is 30 plus 20, total of 50. The same holds for paper 3, finance and management. Paper 2 is totally descriptive, that is in 90 minutes you have to attempt a paper worth 100 marks, which usually have 3 questions, right? And those 3 questions are essay writing, précis writing and comprehension. So this is about phase 2, right? All the papers are set in a bilingual manner. Even if you want to attempt paper in Hindi, you can do so. Phase 3 is your interview marks, which is of 75 marks. In an interview, they also conduct psychometric assessment, right? You can check what psychometric assessment is by googling it. I'll not go into details of that. So your total marks, you can see 300 for phase 2, that is 100 each for paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3, plus 75 marks for interview, which makes it a total of 375 marks, that is phase 2 plus interview, out of which the final merit is made, right? So final selection is based upon the marks you get out of these 375 marks. Interview can also be given in Hindi or English. So English is not a barrier, to clear this exam. Now, what about overlap of syllabus? That is what we tend to do. That how can you manage UPSC and RBI together? Or rather, the question should be that can you manage RBI while you are preparing for UPSC? The answer is yes. That is what I'm going to tell you here. Because there is huge overlap of syllabus between UPSC and RBI, I would not say it's the cakewalk or it's very easy to manage RBI along with UPSC, but I would say that it's manageable. If you put a decent amount of time over a period of time on a consistent basis, you can easily prepare for RBI while preparing for UPSC. How? So let's talk about the overlap of syllabus. I told you about the phase 1 pattern. There are 4 sections, right? 200 marks, 200 questions. I told you about this. Now this section, 80 marks, general awareness. Right. In UPSC, you read a lot about current affairs. I mean, they are the building foundation for you. You cannot clear UPSC without having knowledge of current affairs. So when you read these current affairs can be used to score good marks in the GA section of RBI paper. Right. So this GA, which is worth 80 marks, can be prepared through your UPSC current affairs. Is there one-on-one relationship that if I prepare UPSC current affairs, I'll be able to prepare a GA for RBI? Most probably yes, but I would say a little no is also there because the orientation is but different. What you read in UPSC, right, or the type of questions that are asked in UPSC are somewhat different from what they are asked in RBI from the same content itself. I'll explain you in the next slide how the orientation is different for UPSC current affairs and for current affairs in RBI. So the point I'm trying to make is that surely there is overlap in phase 1 with respect to GA, and reasoning, English and quantitative aptitude. Is there any overlap between this and UPSC CSET? To some extent, yes. But the level of difficulty in quant, reasoning and English that is asked in RBI grade B is somewhat higher, I would say, as compared to UPSC CSET. And also since UPSC CSET is just qualifying, right? People do not prepare for it to that level that what they need to prepare for RBI grade B. So if you prepare for UPSC CSET, I would just say that maybe your some basics with respect to topics in quant like time and work, ratio and proportion, mixture and allegations, or any other topic, they might be good, but you need to practice a lot. So preparing for UPSC CSET will not only will not help you to completely prepare your QA or reasoning for RBI, but yes, it will definitely help you save some time as you will have some base already while preparing for UPSC CSET. In reasoning also in UPSC CSET, there are no questions on syllogism, blood relations and all those things. Rather, they are more of application based. So for reasoning, you need to put a lot of effort while preparing for RBI. UPSC CSET is not going to help much you there. Regarding English language in UPSC CSET, they will only ask you about paragraph based questions, whereas in RBI they ask you a lot of other types of questions like para jumbles, finding grammatical errors, all those things which are not asked in UPSC CSET. So overall, journal awareness can be prepared to a good extent if you are preparing for UPSC current affairs. Quantitative aptitude also can be prepared to a good extent if you are preparing for UPSC CSET. Reasoning, you need to prepare a lot because reasoning, what is asked in RBI is entirely different from what is there in UPSC CSET. And English language, again, there are a lot of topics which are not asked in UPSC CSET. So you need to prepare exclusively for those topics for RBI. So that was about phase 1. But having overlap of current affairs in RBI and UPSC should be a relief to you because it consists worth 80 marks in phase 1. It is one of the most scoring sections. Right. So you must be feeling happy that at least worth 80 marks of preparation is already done. Now I talked about the difference in orientation. Right? In UPSC and RBI with respect to current affairs that you need to understand. In RBI, many a times the questions are asked based upon facts, data, hard data. For example, they might ask you that Sensex increased by how many points, right, last year. They might ask you that question, which is just fact based, data based. Whereas in UPSC, they might ask you that what could not have been the reasons for increase in Sensex last year. So you can see the questions that are being asked in UPSC are more or less concept based, whereas in RBI, I would say they are a mix of concept plus data, fact, with more orientation towards remembering the facts. So that was about overlap of syllabus between UPSC and RBI with respect to phase 1. Now let's move to phase 2. We have already discussed the pattern of phase 2. There are 3 papers: ESI, English and Finance and Management, right? So let us do one thing. Let us try to first discuss the overlap of syllabus between ESI and UPSC, right? ESI is economic and social issues. This is the syllabus in front of you here. Now ESI is one subject where there is the maximum overlap between what you need to study for ESI and UPSC. Again, the orientation required is different. In ESI of RBI, they might ask you, or rather they will ask you some questions based upon facts, which you need to remember, right? The orientation is different, no doubt about that. I'll explain you later how the orientation is different. But overall, if you see the syllabus for ESI, the things that you need to study for RBI, more or less you would have already studied while preparing for UPSC. So let us try to go through that. If you see the first part of your ESI syllabus for RBI, there they mentioned about growth and development, where the syllabus is measurement of growth, poverty alleviation, sustainable development and environmental issues, all these things. If you see the syllabus for your UPSC prelims, right, there also there is mention of sustainable development, right, which is here, then poverty, which is here, right, then climate change, which is again related to sustainable development, right, then measurement of growth, national income, and all these things get covered here under economic development. So you can see more or less what you need to study under growth and development is also covered under your prelim syllabus, as I have shown you here. Then the next part is Indian economy, right, this part. So here you need to study about changes in industrial and labor policy. If you go to your GS paper 3, right, there also there is a mention of changes in industrial policy. So direct one-to-one mapping is there. Then monetary and fiscal policy, right? So there is a mention of government budgeting, basically, right, where you study about fiscal policy, economic survey, all these things you study under government budgeting. Then there is a mention of union budget, which is again a part of government budgeting when you study for GS paper 3 in UPSC. Then Indian money and financial markets, right? Again, Indian money and financial markets is more about mobilization of resources, how the money can be raised. So when you study mobilization of resources in GS paper 3, you study about Indian money and financial markets, primary markets, secondary markets, all these things you study, right? Then regarding labor policy, right, here I talked about changes in industrial policy, which is here. Regarding labor policy and all, there is a mention of capitalism and socialism in GS paper 1. To some extent it gets covered here. So again, you can see under the second unit of Indian economy, there is a lot of overlap. What you are going to study in Indian economy for RBI is already covered in GS paper 1 in paper 3. Next is globalization, the unit number 3. So here basically they talk about liberalization, opening up of Indian economy, balance of payment, export import policy, right, international economic institutions, all these things. So if you see GS paper 1, there is mention of effects of globalization of Indian society, right? Then opening up of Indian economy in GS paper 3, you study about effects of liberalization of economy, right? And then international economic institutions like IMF, World Bank, WTO. In your GS paper 2, there is again mention of important international institutions. So you study about WTO, World Bank, IMF here. Then there is also mention of regional economic cooperation in your syllabus for RBI ESI, right? In GS paper 2, you study about bilateral, regional, global groupings, where you study about regional economic cooperation, SAARC and ASEAN, all these are studied here. So the third unit, that is globalization, also you can see is easily covered if you have covered your syllabus for UPSC. Then there is mention of fourth unit, which is social structure in India. Right. So here also you will see topics related to social issues like multiculturalism, urbanization, migration, gender issues, human development, health and education. All these are mentioned here. If you see the syllabus for GS paper 2 in UPSC, there is mention of role of women and women organization, which is more or less related to gender issues, right? Then demographic trends is basically can be mapped to population and associated issues, right? Then there is mention of uh, urbanization here, which is also there in GS paper 2 syllabus of UPSC. And then there is mention of health and education here, and there is also mention of health and education in your GS paper 2 syllabus. So again, you can see there is a lot of mapping, and moreover in ESI, in RBI, they ask you lot of questions from welfare schemes, right? And reports related to the syllabus, like report on gender gap, report on poverty index, uh, report on health index. All these reports become very important for your RBI exam, because these are directly related to your syllabus. And anyways, in UPSC under GS paper 2, they have already mentioned about welfare schemes, right? So these schemes, when you read, they again help you to attain some knowledge which is required for scoring good in ESI part of your RBI exam. So overall, see, I'm not going into detail of mapping each word and each line of your ESI syllabus of RBI to uh, syllabus of UPSC, but overall, when you study these topics for UPSC, you study them with good understanding, going up to a certain depth, and if you do that, you will have a decent amount of knowledge for most of the topics that are required to be covered in ESI of RBI. That is the message I want to give. So there is a lot of overlap between ESI syllabus of RBI and UPSC syllabus I have shown you. So you can consider that if you have prepared for UPSC seriously, 80 to 85% of your ESI is already done, though the orientation might needs to be changed. Now, what do I mean by orientation? The orientation is the type of questions that they are asking. So this might be a question in UPSC. Which of the following statements strengthens the fact that GDP alone cannot symbolize the development of country? So this is a concept based question, right? This is not a fact or a definition based question. That which of the following statements strengthens the fact that GDP uh, alone cannot be the status for the development of a country? So they will give you four options, right? I'll not go into solving this question, but the point I'm trying to make is this is bit conceptual, understanding based question. Whereas if you see in RBI, they might ask you question, which of the following is correct regarding GDP, and that is solely based upon the definition of GDP. If you know the definition of GDP, you will be able to mark the correct answer. Similarly, they might ask you in RBI grade B about the database questions, the hard data, that which of the following is the GDP growth projections made by the World Bank for India in 2018-19. Yet that you tell the number, the exact number with respect to the GDP growth projections made by the World Bank. You need to remember the hard data, the facts here. So that is the difference between orientation when you study for UPS and RBI grade B. The orientation needs to be a little bit different because the type of questions that are being asked have different level altogether, right? So please, though there is huge overlap of syllabus between ESI and UPSC syllabus, but you need to check that whatever you have read, is it complying with the orientation that is required for RBI grade B exam. So that was about ESI paper, guys, in brief. Now I'll move to finance and management paper. Again, in finance and management paper, I'll not go into details, right, of trying to map each and everything to what is there in the UPSC syllabus. But overall, I'll try to tell you that how there is a certain kind of overlap between finance and UPSC syllabus, and how the management part is easy, or what is the overlap between management and UPSC. So finance and management is basically divided into two parts, finance and management. This is the syllabus for management in the front of your screen, right? For management. So you can see that in management they ask about organizational behavior topics such as personality, reinforcement, perception, motivation, leadership, EI, emotional intelligence, conflict, organizational change, interpersonal relationships. All these are based upon organizational behavior. Then apart from organizational behavior, they also ask you about ethics and corporate governance. Now, ethics and corporate governance is something that you would already be studying as part of your UPSC preparation. So here you will get to feel that something is familiar, but other topics such as motivation, communication, leadership, personality, conflict, change, emotional intelligence, these are something that you might not be studying for UPSC, or rather you will not be studying for UPSC. But this part, which you are not studying for UPSC, I would say that this is not tough. This portion is easy, but not so easy as it seems. If you start reading it, you will find it very easy. You will find it like a cakewalk. But it is not so easy because of the fact that questions are tricky, the options are tricky. So when you go to the exam after giving a casual reading, you will realize that you are not able to solve the questions correctly, or you are confused while solving each and every question. And that's where I'm saying that this is a easy subject, but when you start preparing, do not take it so easily as it may seem, because you need to read it thoroughly, have your concepts right, then only you will be able to solve the tricky questions in the exam. So that was about management, right? Otherwise very easy though bit tricky, but if you spend some time, I mean, it will give you the maximum return for your effort in the exam. Then coming to the finance syllabus. In finance, they have mentioned this is the syllabus. Now, first you need to understand, guys, it is not core finance. Core finance is where you need to learn a lot about accounting standards, income statement, balance sheet, cash flows, right? That is the core finance, right? I'll not talk about other topics because you might not be aware about core finance. But the type of finance that is being asked in the exam is not core finance. Please try to understand that, right? Why it is not core finance? Let me explain you. For example, topics like inflation, budget, corporate governance, these are not core finance. I mean, rather, I would say these are economics topic, right? Again, these three topics, 6, 7, 8, you would have already covered if you're preparing for UPSC, right? Then next topics such as financial inclusion, right? Uh, Alternate sources of finance. These are again not something no which are very technical or numerical based topics. No, these can be easily done. And moreover, if you try to map your GS2 syllabus, right, where you study about Indian economy, issues related to planning or mobilization of resources. Mobilization of resources is directly related to your primary and secondary markets here. Derivatives. We also study about derivatives under mobilization of resources, right? But again, these are not tough topics. Even if you have not read mobilization of resources to an extent that you can understand this and this completely, there is nothing to panic. These are easy topics. Provided you spend some time on that, you can easily gauge the understanding required for these topics. Then they talk about Reserve Bank of India and its functions, regulator of banks, right? Other regulatory bodies in India like SIDBI, Exim, NABARD, NHB. These topics are again, I mean, they are more or less related to the banking system in India rather than related to core finance that would be required by chartered accountants. So overall, what I want to say is that finance as a name looks something which is really difficult. People become afraid of that. I would say there is nothing to afraid, but yes, it's not something that can be done in 10-12 days. You need to spend time. If you spend time and you have a good aptitude, you can understand all of this. This is something which is really doable and manageable, right? Now I move to the next paper, that is paper 2 English, right? In English, as I told you, they basically test you on your summarization skills through Prezi, right? On your explanation or writing skills through essay, and your comprehension skills through comprehension. Now here the word essay also might have some signals to your mind, because essay writing was also there in UPSC. So obviously that essay writing will definitely help you while writing good essays in UPSC. But again, try to understand that the orientation is different. Here the essays are supposed to be only say 300 words. They are very small as compared to what you write in UPSC. So here you need to write in a different manner rather than writing lines and lines and becoming really elaborative. You need to be very concise here. But definitely, if you have good essay writing for UPSC, it can help you here. Then preci and comprehension are also something that are not tough. It can be easily worked upon, provided you again spend some time on these things. So that is about all the three papers I want to discuss. Now, one additional thing that I want to add, if you see the syllabus for phase 2, 50% paper is descriptive type in paper 1 and paper 2. Right, 50% paper is descriptive type. So if you are preparing for UPSC, you must have some idea about descriptive writing, because UPSC mains is all about descriptive writing. So that knowledge of descriptive writing in terms of your writing speed, in terms of your content, in terms of your thought process and structure will definitely help you here. But again, there is a caveat here. The knowledge of descriptive writing that is there in UPSC, right, might put you in trouble here, because in UPSC, what you do is you write on paper. It's pen and paper. Whereas in RBI grade B, it's more about, rather it's all about typing with keyboard on your computer. It's an online exam, right? So the typing speed you need to build upon, but the thought structure, right? The idea of writing a good intro, conclusion and a body will definitely help you in descriptive writing. But please do work upon your typing speed, as in RBI the answers needs to be written on computer using the keyboard. So by now I think you would have got the answer. Is it manageable now? I think it is definitely, and I hope you are also of the same opinion that it is manageable. But still, since I have told you multiple times in this video that the orientation of UPSC and RBI are a little bit different, right? So you need to learn about the right orientation. Even if the syllabus is overlapping, learning about the orientation is very, very important. Same subject in different papers is asked in different manners. That is what you need to learn, right? And you and to learn about the right orientation, you need to read the syllabus at least 50 times. That is very, very important. And go through the previous year questions again at least 10 to 20 times, so that you get to know what type of questions are asked, what is the level of questions, what is the depth of questions, because that will help you to map these questions to the syllabus and will help you to know the right orientation for this exam, right? And in case you are wondering where to get previous year questions, you can sign up on our EduTab website, right? And there you will be able to find all the previous year questions starting from 2017 till 2021, both for phase 1 and phase 2, completely free of cost, right? So that's it guys. Thank you for now. I hope this video might be useful for the UPSC candidates who didn't have much knowledge about RBI. They would have got some knowledge about RBI, and who had already some knowledge about RBI but they were really worried how to manage RBI with UPSC. You guys would have got a little bit of confidence that it's not something which is impossible. Given a right kind of time management, given the right kind of orientation, you can easily manage your RBI prep along with UPSC, and you can be ready with the backup option, which is, in my view, is the best backup option if you are not able to clear UPSC even after 2. So thanks for now. Have a nice day. Bye bye.